Earl was a good soul. He had a heart full of kindness. He wore a smile that could light up a room, but Earl was painfully shy. He kept to himself, a shadow in a world full of light. He longed for connection, for the warmth of friendship. But fear held him back. It whispered doubts in his ear. He retreated further into his shell. Earl lived a simple life. He found solace in books, in stories of adventure and faraway lands. He imagined himself a hero, vanquishing foes and righting wrongs. But reality was a harsh contrast. It held no magic, no grand quests, just the mundane rhythm of everyday life. And Earl, trapped in his shyness, felt like an observer, not a participant. Earl dreamed of a day when he would break free, when he would shed his shyness and embrace the world. He wished for someone to see through his quiet demeanor, to see the kindness that resided within. But for now he remained a gentle soul, hidden from view, lost in the labyrinth of his own making. He clung to the love of his parents. They were his anchor, his safe harbor in a stormy sea. Their love was unconditional, a beacon of hope in his solitary world. He cherished the moments they shared, the quiet evenings filled with laughter and warmth. They were his world, his everything. He never imagined a day when they wouldn't be by his side. The thought was unbearable, a nightmare he dared not dream. 1935. The world was on the brink of chaos. The drums of war beat louder with each passing day. A shadow fell over Earl's life, a creeping darkness that threatened to consume everything he held dear. His father, a man of quiet strength and unwavering principles, received the dreaded notice. He was called to serve, to defend his country on distant battlefields. Earl's world shattered. Fear, cold and relentless, gripped his heart. He clung to his father, memorizing the feel of his calloused hands, the sound of his voice, the scent of his pipe tobacco. His father, sensing his son's terror, knelt before him. He spoke of courage, of duty, of the fight for freedom. But his words were lost on young Earl, drowned out by the roar of his own fear. The day his father left was seared into Earl's memory. The image of his father boarding that train, his face etched with a mixture of determination and fear, haunted Earl's dreams. He became withdrawn, his cheerful disposition replaced by a constant, gnawing anxiety. His mother, her own heart heavy with worry, tried to be strong for her son, but the weight of their new reality pressed down on them both, suffocating their once vibrant home in a shroud of silence and dread. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. The war raged on, a distant monster casting a long, dark shadow over their lives. Each letter from his father was a lifeline, a testament to his continued existence. But each letter also brought news of fallen comrades, of the horrors unfolding on the battlefield. Earl lived in a perpetual state of fear, dreading the day the dreaded news would arrive at their doorstep. 1945. The war finally ended. A wave of relief washed over the nation, a collective sigh of gratitude for the nightmare's end. But for Earl, there was no joy, only a hollow ache in his chest. His father didn't come home with the other soldiers. Weeks turned into months, hope dwindling with each passing day. Then, one ordinary afternoon, a knock on the door shattered their fragile peace. A soldier stood on their porch, his face etched with sorrow. His words, delivered with a gentle empathy, pierced Earl's heart like shards of ice. His father was gone, lost in the final days of the war. Earl's world crumbled. The news hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath and leaving him gasping for air in a world suddenly devoid of color and sound. His anchor, his protector, his hero was gone. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight that threatened to suffocate him. His mother, her own grief a palpable presence in their small home, tried to be strong for her son. But the light had gone out of her eyes, replaced by a dull ache that mirrored Earl's own. The following year brought another devastating blow. Earl's mother, her spirit broken, succumbed to a swift and merciless illness. Earl watched helplessly as the last vestiges of his world faded away. With her final breath, she whispered words of love, her voice a mere whisper, a fragile thread snapping under the weight of their shared sorrow. He was alone. Utterly alone. The world continued to spin, oblivious to his pain. Days bled into nights, each one colder and darker than the last. He moved through life like a ghost, haunted by memories of a past that now seemed like a cruel illusion. The laughter, the love, the warmth of his former life, all gone, replaced by an emptiness so profound it threatened to consume him. Section 4. Unhinging a soul, Earl's descent into madness. Loneliness became Earl's constant companion. It wrapped around him like a shroud, suffocating him, squeezing the life out of him. He retreated further into himself, seeking solace in the silence of his own mind, but even there, peace eluded him. Memories, once cherished treasures, morphed into tormentors, replaying in an endless loop, each cycle amplifying his pain. His mind, once his sanctuary, became a battleground where reason waged a losing war against despair. The world became a distorted, menacing place. Faces blurred, voices became a cacophony of meaningless sounds. He saw shadows lurking at the edge of his vision, heard whispers that sent chills down his spine. His grip on reality loosened, his thoughts becoming fragmented, disjointed. The line between what was real and what existed only in his tormented mind blurred, leaving him adrift in a sea of confusion and fear. The darkness whispered to him, fed his pain, nurtured his growing rage. It told him the world was a cruel, unforgiving place. It reminded him of his losses, of his loneliness, of the injustice of it all. He railed against the unfairness of it all, his cries echoing in the emptiness of his home. He was trapped, imprisoned by his own mind, a prisoner in a solitary confinement of his own making. A chilling transformation began to take hold. The kind, gentle soul that was Earl started to warp, twisted by grief and consumed by madness. His eyes, once sparkling with warmth and kindness, turned cold and distant, reflecting the growing darkness within. He became a stranger to himself, a grotesque reflection in the shattered mirror of his sanity. And the world, oblivious to his internal struggle, remained at a distance, unaware of the monster slowly taking shape behind the closed doors of his home. Section 5. The Killer Awakens. A bloody trail in Earl's wake, 1947. The darkness that had been festering inside Earl finally consumed him. It twisted his thoughts, poisoned his memories, and transformed him into something monstrous. The once kind-hearted soul was gone, replaced by a chilling emptiness, a void that craved release through violence. His first victim was Chad, a boisterous neighbor who had unknowingly slighted Earl with a careless remark. A switch flipped in Earl's mind and the world narrowed to a single terrifying focus: revenge. Next was Mike, the mailman who delivered the news of his father's death. Earl saw him as a harbinger of doom, a physical embodiment of his pain. He stalked him for days, his rage simmering before finally pouncing with a brutality that shocked even the most hardened detectives. His killings were swift, brutal, and seemingly random, each one leaving the small town paralyzed with fear. The once quiet and unassuming Earl had become a phantom, a specter of death haunting their once peaceful streets. Limmy, the grocer, who always had a kind word for Earl, became his third victim. The irony of it all was lost on Earl. He no longer saw individuals, only targets for his rage, outlets for the overwhelming darkness that threatened to consume him. His final victim was Tom, the soldier who had delivered the news of his father's demise years earlier. Earl had carried that encounter with him, reliving it in his mind countless times, the soldier's words etching themselves onto his very soul. The town, once a beacon of tranquility, was gripped by fear and suspicion. Neighbors, once friendly and welcoming, now eyed each other with distrust. The murders had shaken them to their core, shattering their illusion of safety. Whispers of a vengeful spirit, a demon in human form, spread like wildfire. Little did they know the monster in their midst was not a figment of their collective imagination, but a broken man driven to the brink by grief and madness. Section 6. A Soul's Escape, Earl's Last Stand and an Ominous Afterglow. The police finally closed in on Earl. They surrounded his house, their faces grim, their hands hovering near their holsters. The man who once sought solace in the shadows of his own making now found himself trapped, his world shrinking to the confines of his dilapidated home. He could hear the muffled voices of the officers outside, their footsteps heavy on the porch. The game was up. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. But Earl had one final trick up his sleeve, a desperate act of defiance against the encroaching forces of law and reason. In the dimly lit corner of his living room sat an old television set, its screen flickering with static. Earl had always been drawn to it, fascinated by its ability to conjure images and sounds from thin air. It was a portal to another world, a world where reality could be bent and reshaped. As the police battered down his door, Earl focused his remaining will, his essence, into the television. He poured his pain, his madness, his very soul into the flickering screen, hoping against hope for a chance at a different kind of existence. The police stormed the house, their guns drawn. They found Earl's body slumped on the floor, his eyes vacant, a serene smile playing on his lips. He was gone, his tormented soul finally finding release in death. The officers, relieved the ordeal was over, secured the scene and began their investigation. As the last officer left the house, he paused, a shiver running down his spine. He could have sworn he saw the old television flicker to life, a single distorted image flashing across the screen before fading back into static. It was the face of a man, his eyes burning with an eerie, otherworldly light. The officer quickly dismissed it as a trick of the light, a figment of his imagination. But as he walked away, the faint sound of static followed him, whispering on the wind, a chilling reminder that some things are best left undisturbed.